Hello everybody, today we're gonna look at one of these. This is used on compressors or machines which use compressed air. This has a pressure regulation, so you can put in one pressure and you can reduce the pressure going out. You have a gauge which shows what pressure is coming out. You have a small tank on the bottom with a release valve for oil, water and everything that's for moisture in your system, so it cleans your compressed air. And yeah, I did break this one. There's the bottom part is completely blown apart, and here are every millimeter a long crack. Yeah, I did use it for my new project I'm working on, and I just destroyed it while testing out stuff. So first of all, it's a pressure gauge. Really don't need this. And I'm not gonna disassemble it, but it's more or less just a spring, and depending on how much pressure is coming in, it bends the spring back and the gauge goes up and down. So yeah, that's this part. I'm not gonna disassemble it, but this part is broken anyway. And I did break multiple of these over the past years. So yeah, you have your inlet, outlet and two sensing ports. And most of the time the back one is closed off, but I have used them on both sides. They are not designed to have air going out, so they are not outputs. They are designed to be just measuring ports for gauges, and it doesn't really matter if they are like these type of gauges or some computerized stuff which you can screw on. But if you look inside, you can actually really good see that they are, like I said, not designed as output, because there's a flow which goes down into this one, then goes up and back there, and they fins here and here which make it harder to go back. So there's not like a really big T-piece, more like the air goes out and then back to this ports. Yeah, we're gonna see it later if I disassemble it. This is the tank. It has the separation part stuck in it for some reason. Yeah, there's a small rubber gasket, and this part, you can really see the broken part. It's designed for if you have it filled up. There's most of the time a minimum max. No, it's not labeled on these until where you can fill it up with gunk. But if it gets filled up, you want to clear it out, so you remove the pressure from the system and unscrew this thing, and it just flows out of the bottom. Then you just close it up and open your pressure system again. So yeah, that's the tank for all the crap in your system. And back here is what the magic is happening. You can actually maybe see there's the inlet, and you may see it back here in the corner, a little bit of the brass. So there's just a straight hole coming into this chamber, and the middle part is the out part. It goes after this chamber in the middle, and it's going through this piece. And here's some kind of stone art sponge thing. I don't know how it's called, but it's used in this type of application, and I actually don't know if I can disassemble it. Let's see, do I have pliers? Because the bigger ones which I disassemble most of the time, they just unscrew, and I'm not seeing a thread anywhere, so they just Is it screwed together? I have no idea. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how to disassemble it. This plastic ring is most likely clipped in. Yeah, it's in this small form factor, it looks like everything is press fitted. Pushing it out from inside. No, it won't push. And I just got the screwdriver stuck. Yeah, I have no idea how to disassemble it. I can show it on a bigger piece how it looks like. For example, I have a bigger one and some other small ones. I think on this one it might be easier to show. But something with these plastic ones. Oh, it's a bit different design. Or not. Yeah, it's this thing. It lets air through, but not oil and moisture. It's like a pretty fine mesh filter, and pops in. It gets held down by this rubber ring. And this one, maybe this one has a rubber ring too, but it's so small that I didn't see it. Yeah, I can reassemble it later. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, I think this is it's a rubber ring on these type. On these metal ones, they're screwed on. So I was actually a bit surprised and didn't know how to disassemble it because I use most of the time these metal ones. Yeah, it's a rubber ring. You learn something every day. And it's a bit of a different design. These ones are hollow inside. These type, but a bit bigger, use like a big washer type. More or less, it's just a rounded flat piece which has like 5 millimeters of thickness, and this one is hollow. So yeah, interesting. They're using a bit of a different design for this plasticky version. Now let's get to the interesting part. This is the inside valve, and it should unscrew. Maybe I'm gonna remove this brass port back here. Like I said, this back port or front port I use just for measuring, and I can show you later why it is like this. This is a small rubber gasket. Yeah, just a cap, nothing special. And you can see it's the same on both sides. And let's unscrew this interesting piece which dictates how much pressure is going out. It's more or less this sandwich. I'm gonna look at this later. Yeah, it's this huge thing. This one is inside, and they're like channels in here, and the air comes in here and goes out, and depending on how much this piece is pressed against the plastic casing, it can make, it's like a ball valve more or less. If you close that bit down, it pressure falls because it's more or less a restriction, and it can't go through the system as easy, and pressure drops. So it's a valve which you can push in and out, and depending on how much it's pressed in or out, it makes the flow harder or easier. And if it's harder to go through for the air, it drops in pressure because it can't keep up with providing enough air to keep a high pressure. And yeah, this is a metal piece with a gasket. It goes on top of this because it's all a big system and it has to be tight. And there's the big hole which goes through the casing to the side where this pin sits in. You can see the pin here, and it gets pressed by this metal piece. It has another rubber piece in the middle for being tight. You don't want this thing to leak everywhere. And this is the mechanism which actually makes it pressing against this metal pin. Because the pin gets pressed up all the time with this spring here, so it's closed. If you don't have pressure on this side, it's all the time closed. And you have on the top this big spring which pushes down onto this pin, so it gets more or less sandwiched between two springs. And depending on how stiff the spring is, it makes this pin go in one or the other direction, because this spring is always the same tension. And this one can be changed by this screw. It stands in here, and this is on here, and it's all sandwiched more or less together with this cap and this casing, because it can't go anywhere because it's pressed against this casing, and the top part is pressing inside this rotating thing, and it gets screwed on. So yeah, it's pressed in here, and the only way you can change the tension of the spring is by loosening and tightening more or less this nut here. If you loosen this nut, the spring goes softer. This is strange. It looks like it goes in a different, yeah, it's not like a usual screws and nuts. Or is it? It's a finer pitch, or no, it's not a pitch, but I think it goes in a different direction too. Yeah, it goes in a different direction. It's counterclockwise compared to this metric machine screw. And for some reason I know it goes. It's a bit hard to turn. And yeah, this more or less, this spacing is always the same, and this brass thing goes up and down, and so it compresses the spring or releases it. Can't really show it because it's pretty stiff. So yeah, depending on this tension, this pin, it's a pretty interesting design. And the only things left is this piece. It's most likely clipped together somewhere. Yeah. You have some teeth back here, and there are some teeth inside. Maybe I have some lights to shine in. think I just knocked the camera a bit. Yeah. Yeah, now you can see it. There are teeth on the sides and like a star in the middle. The teeth are designed so if it's on, you can push it up and rotate. And if you selected your pressure, which you want, you can just press it down and it gets locked so you can't accidentally change the pressure. And this piece more or less just holds everything together. And the star in the middle of this one is just holding this screw in place so it doesn't rotate. It rotates with all this. This one big piece. And this brass stuff is actually pretty interesting. This inserts. The first time I wanted to disassemble it, it got pretty interesting, as you can see here maybe. And I think the big one has a similar problem when I decided to disassemble it. I remember disassembling one of these and I just ripped everything apart. Because I didn't know you have to remove these little pins in here. It's an interesting design. First of all, let's push out these pins. They're pretty well pressed in, so maybe I have to use some more force. And maybe something heavy to hammer on. Maybe Allen key is not the best way. And I think it won't move a bit. Maybe in a different direction would be easier. I think I'm just bending my key. They don't want to move. They're pretty stuck in here. Now they're going. It's just some pins. But as I said, it's just some flat metal rolled together, because you can see a small seam on the side. And yeah, I think I disassembled this one some time ago because the pins are pretty bent, and here's some marks of me trying to disassemble it, because back in days I thought they're just screwed together really tight. They like some other older models, but these you can't. They just twist a bit, as you may see. They twist a bit, but they don't get apart. And I thought, yeah, maybe it's pretty tight together, so I started twisting and twisting, and it wouldn't come apart. And then later I decided just to try removing these strange black things I've seen in here. And yeah, I was actually pretty surprised seeing how it's built together. I have to get something to pull on these. Yeah. And that's how they look. So this is the outer parts which you have normally on this side and this side. And between of these, it's a bit of a different one. They look similar, but it's like two of these sandwiched together, so they are like rubber on both sides. This hex metal a bit thicker, so it goes into both sides, but it doesn't have the thread. It's just a rounded piece then to go in between two of these. And I think this one had one of these oiler tanks too. And I don't actually remember why I disassembled. I think I did throw away this one. And now you can actually see what I meant with these ones are not designed as outputs. First of all, they have a pretty small hole to go through, because yeah, these pressure gauges don't really use much of the air to show it, they just need the pressure. So a small hole is fine. And that's the output, so the air goes towards us. The middle port is the main output coming from this valve down here, and it gets regulated by this metal thing here. And they're like on the left and right, the ports going back into the plastic piece, they're going back and out. So you don't have a direct path to these out pieces, you have like a zigzag path. It prevents it from getting like spikes in the measurements, and you don't have all the force of this stuff pressure pressing against it. It's more like softened around the corner. And I think I'm gonna disassemble this one because these have a similar design, and on these you maybe can see it a bit better. At least on the big one I have in the bag, but I can't really disassemble it because it's in use. It would be too much work to try and remove it from the system. So I hope this one has pretty similar design, and it looks like it doesn't. No, it's a bit of a different design, because the bigger one, it's a mini design, and the other one is a midi. They have like grooves cut to the sides here and here, and holes. Not these holes for the screws. They're like inside this gasket. There are like two screws, two holes here and here, which are just channels going to these back ports. And it's the same approach. It's just a. In this case, it's actually a plastic screw with. Okay, this is a bit of a different one. It has a rubber and some kind of groove just sitting. The bigger ones have similar design to these, like rubber sitting in a groove inside here. So if you disassemble it, it stays on. This one is a bit different. It's just like this and this layering in here. Yeah. It's just a small hole. I think I can't really see the hole. Interesting. I can't see the hole where the air comes. Yeah. You can see the indentation where it goes deeper. But I'm not. Oh yeah. The channel for this air goes up to this piece. So in this design, the air which is in this chamber above the valve, not like the bigger version which has the holes in the back going back. This one has, for example, again this design with the air going back into the system. Yeah, it's interesting to see all the different approaches. There's some leftover Teflon. Yeah, that's this piece more or less. The pretty similar design, all of these, just a bit different look. But you have always this separation piece where the air comes in, gets through this mesh type and goes out to the gauges and the output. Then there's a valve sitting in here, one small spring inside, one big spring on the top, and you can change the stiffness of the spring. And yeah, that's more or less this design. And like I said, this pin design, which holds in like a rubber ring, is pretty interesting. I didn't expect it the first time I disassembled one of these. I would have thought they just used, like here, some, how it's called, thread in the plastic, but no, they used brass inserts, and the brass inserts have rubber and gets held in by metal rods. Maybe it's designed to be more reliable on big pressures, because maybe plastic gets ripped apart by if you're using high pressure on the main ports. Because the small ports using just plastic, but they have some small holes and like the big ones here. And you have on these ones like 2 holes going through for mounting, and on this smaller ones you have like 2 holes that you can screw in. And yeah, that's a pressure thingy. I don't know how it's called.